I went to a medieval festival a few weeks ago, and ever since then I've been wanting to make a Viking hood. But not just any hood, I want to make one inspired by an archaeological finding from northern Norway, and that's the Skjoldhamns costume. Now the whole ensemble is made up of multiple pieces, but for the sake of this video I'm mostly interested in the hood part. Although the whole costume has very beautifully woven elements to it that I might want to recreate later on, but that will be a separate video. To clarify, I will not be making a historically accurate costume, and that's because I want to use the materials that I already have. I have seen multiple versions of this online, and I think the ones that I've seen are mostly made from wool or some linen and cotton blend, and those look great. I almost want to buy fabric, but again, in the spirit of using my stash, I will be limiting myself to what I have today. This means that I will be making a knitted pattern. I think the design is simple enough that I can later on translate the template to make a fabric version if I really like it. So I'm rather positive about the whole thing and starting with a knitted version of it. Now let's just get started, because knowing me, this project is going to take an unexpected turn right at the beginning, and it will probably turn out being something else altogether. But that's fine. Let's go. It's much later in the day, and I just realized that I didn't even explain my plan. So I have these 3 hanks of 100% Finnish wool. It's very soft and springy wool, a lot softer than the Norwegian one, which is surprising to me, but I don't know enough of sheep breeds to, I guess, tell the difference. So I'm looking forward to knitting this. The plan is to dye all of this with my onion peels and then get this coppery brown color. I may also over dye this, we'll see, but I'll start with this white grayish yarn first. Anyway, let's get going because this is going to take a while and I want to get started. I'm going to start with a rhubarb soup, which will basically act as a mordant, and when that's more or less boiled, I will add the onion peels. I think I'm pretty happy with that. It's a nice deep color. I think I get the orange color from the red onion peels, whereas the yellow peels would give a more yellow undertone. But I've just mixed everything up here. I have a bit of both. All right, I have fished out most of the onion peels. There are some floaters in there, but it'll just have to be this way. Let's just get started. Now I forgot to soak this wool, but it's fine because this is going to be soaking in this for multiple hours. I may even leave it overnight with the power off. So yeah, let's just go for it. Okay, it's the next day and this has been soaking overnight with the heat turned off, and I think it's all right. I don't think it's gonna get darker. I was hoping that it would, but it's darker than last night when I left it before going to bed. So Let's just take it out and have a look. That's actually not too bad. If you look at the brown hanging comparison, they are not too dissimilar. Of course, these have a more red undertone, but I think it'll work out actually. Okay, that's not bad. Alright guys, help me out here. In March, I planted these indigo seeds. And I got them because it's supposed to be the true indigo Japanese plant. And I wasn't even gonna get it because it's just 15 seeds for like, how much was it? I think it was like 50 kronos. So like, I don't know, something like $5. And I felt a little bit scammed, but anyway, I hadn't seen them anywhere else, so I just bought them. And I struggled to grow these. Only one plant came out, and that plant looks like this. This is not indigo. Like, what is this? I've been looking at pictures online, and it's not even close. This is something else altogether. I mean, there are some flowers coming out, but what is this? It's not indigo. At least it's not what it's advertised on this. It's not this indigo tinctoria. So I think either I've been further scammed or I've been sowing and taking care of a rogue seed that came with the soil when I planted this, because none of the seeds took off, and the only thing that came out in those mini pots that I had was this here. But this is not indigo. What is this? Does anyone know? Because I'm about to throw this out in the garden, and I don't know. I'm disappointed. The yarn is ready to go, so the plan now is to knit 2 squares, equal dimensions, and then a longer rectangle that will be more or less 4 times the height of one of the squares. And through the magic of folding and origami, it will end up looking something like this. But in all seriousness, I just made a template to more or less give me an idea about the sizes, and that's mostly because I've seen multiple designs online. There's like poncho size hoods, but then there's also hoods that end above the chest, and that's too short. I want something in between. I want something that covers the main part of my chest, so the front square will go something diagonally like this towards my armpit, and then the same length going downwards. So that's my plan, and I've actually done a swatch because since I'm not following a pattern here, I really have to be careful about my dimensions. I don't want to be redoing this work. And in that process, I've realized that although I really enjoy this yarn, I think it's probably one of my favorite yarns so far. The result I'm getting, it's not quite what I want for this project. I want something a little bit thicker, a little bit more robust. So I think to do that, actually, I have gotten additional yarn, and this is the Rauma alpaca lin, which is baby alpaca lin and wool. So I will be mixing that, and as you see here, the swatch came out great. And I think this color here matches both this hand dyed and the brown. At some point, perhaps this will fade, but that doesn't bother me. So it'll be what it will be. So I will get to that. Now I will start by knitting the front and the back squares first, and then based on what I get and how much yarn I have, I will knit the top part. Anyway, I'm looking forward to the final result, so let's just get to it. Alright guys, it has been probably like 2+ weeks since my last update, but I have worked on this project and I'm nearly done. So I've basically knit 2 squares exactly the same size and then a longer triangle with the same width and then 4 times the length about. And I just basically need to assemble everything now. I don't think I've explained the pattern or the assembly, so let's just do that now. I just realized it might be a lot easier if I actually show you the whole thing before I sew it in. So as I mentioned, I made a long rectangle and 2 squares, and basically they will go like this. I will sew both of these sides like so, and then I will fold the long rectangle in half, fold the squares like so, and then sew the top part here, and basically decide which one is going to be, which of these sides is going to be the back, and then just sew the back shut. I think it's simple enough. When I knit this, I messed up this first part, this round square here, and that's why it's like folding like this even after I've blocked it. But I think once I sew it in, that will go away. I'm not too worried about that. But then everything else is working out pretty all right. It's just basically garter stitch around the whole square, but on this section, I don't know what I was thinking. I just decided to purl it. Don't do it that way. Anyway, let's get to it. Oh, and now that I'm showing it like this, notice that the square is slightly smaller in width than the long rectangle, and that's by design. I wanted to make both of the squares smaller and this long rectangle wider because I wanted a wider hood. I think that would give a nice effect once it's done, and also because I have a big head. Whenever I buy like hats or whenever I want to knit myself like a winter hat, I find that I have to go a size up because the standard size, it doesn't fit my head. Even if I like try to knit a man's size, that like barely fits. I don't know. I like to say that I need a big head to protect my big brain, but maybe it's just empty space in there. So I finally finished it last evening and I'm absolutely in love with the color, the fit, and the general design. Even the little pin I got at the medieval festival looks great. Like, it's just simple, a nice detail there. And the fit and the hood is also really nice. It's big enough that I can just cover my whole head and even more, and I feel like that gives it like a mysterious element. I like it. It's really hot in here, so I'm not gonna leave that on, but I'm gonna leave it long enough to show you basically what I've done here. Okay, I lied. I had to take it off. I am boiling in here. It's very hot. not going to complain, but wearing wool at this moment is not appropriate. Anyway, the construction is simple enough, and I think this is a perfect project for scraps. And that's because if you have very beautiful colors that you want to use, you can make edges with a sort of design. You can even make something in the center here, but just remember that, you know, it'll end up going this way like a diamond shape. And this is sort of what I did with this design, like the perimeter around the square and the edges of the rectangle. They're different. They're different altogether. And I remember now I did this by design, and that's because the versions that I had seen online, they looked simple enough. It's just like a square where you sew it in, but I thought that it would make it a lot more interesting and give it texture and just an element of curiosity if I did different edging. And then when I sewed it on, like, it's fun. I think it's fun. I think it gives it this interesting texture and look to it. It simulates more of a cloth rather than a knitted garment, because I guess they were made out of canvas or wool or whatever. So that's what I did. So what do you think? I'm actually thinking about publishing a pattern / my notes. I'm not quite sure if I want to call it a pattern because, first of all, it's only one size, the size that fits my body, although I think that this sort of design is quite size friendly. I think as long as you more or less figure out the size of the front square, that will more or less guide the size of everything else, including your hood. But I mean, everybody's body is different. Some people have really wide shoulders and really like slim torso, and you know, vice versa. So this is why I made a newspaper template, because I myself struggle with sizing sometimes. I have like really long arms and very short torso, so I have to pick between a small to medium to large size depending on which part of my body I'm knitting. The struggle is real. You all know that. But I'm thinking of making my notes available. I'm not sure if anybody's interested in that. Let me know in the comments. If you are, then I'll figure out a clever way of doing it. I don't want to do it via Ravelry, and that's mostly because I am overwhelmed by all of the platforms out there, and I'm trying to minimize all of these subscriptions that I have. And I don't really use Ravelry ever, actually, because if I buy patterns, I like to buy them printed from shops or directly from a creator's website. Sometimes I go in there, but it's not very often whatsoever. And most of the times, because I have a hard time reading patterns, I just make things up on my own. Am I the only one? Okay, I'm ranting now. Please let me know in the comments if you are interested in seeing my notes, and then I'll figure out a way to make it easily accessible. Thank you for watching. See you next time.